Well, welcome to the August wrap up. I think I introduced this. The next part is that how's August? Shit. um, but either way, I go through good, bad, and indifferent. I talk about post auction. I talk about properties that are just, we're handing back at the moment and getting active prices, traditional prices on them. Talk about the process of auction of educating sellers. Seems to be a market where we're pushing up a hill. There's no question. So hopefully it gives you a bit of insight, gives you an understanding of the diversity of what auction is used for. But thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's wrap up August. I don't know, I was trying to think of a word to describe August. For lack of better terminology, shit. It wasn't the greatest month. Some people have said to me, August is supposedly being the slowest month of the year and everything like that. I don't know if I agree with them. It's one of those times where fallout rate out of escrow or fallout rate out of contract, depending on the lingo that you use or depending on whether you're in an attorney state or you're an escrow state, but it's just been rampant. Like it really has been. But it's also one of the key elements that I will share with you is the panic of agents has fallen into that. So giving you an understanding of what I've been dealing with in the month of August is that most of the time when an agent is doing something that isn't good for the auction process. Now, I'll give you an example. We do all the reports and disclosures up front, so therefore we can get the cleanest deal possible. Now, when the agent has a little bit of pressure and they're not getting as much interest, and keep in mind is that I'd go as far as to say that 80+% of our properties at the moment are properties that have previously been listed as a traditional or are listed as a traditional that is converted. The agent is going in and negotiating deals and not getting the auction team involved because they don't want to push back on the buyers or the agent for inspections or all of these normal contingencies or normal terms that they're offering on a deal. So what that's leading to is that we make a phone call to check in on them, every 2 days or so, is that they'll get a phone call from the auction team or certainly from myself or whatever it looks like, is that the volume of communication is pretty up there. But they go, we accepted an offer, trying to tell us that it's good news. And the moment that I hear that is a moment that I know that there's probably an 85% chance, certainly in today's market, where that deal will fall out of escrow or fall out of contract. It's funny because when I hear that an agent tells me that the property's gone into escrow and we haven't been part of the negotiation process leading into auction day, is that we don't even actually send any type of disbursement or anything along those lines because we know that there's such a high likelihood that the property will fall out of escrow. We don't want to go through the projection element of that property possibly closing. We don't want to give ourselves a false economy, so to speak, of the properties that we have closing. And that has just been absolutely rampant, regardless of whether you are in Oklahoma, Tennessee, New York, Maine, Florida, Texas, California, Oregon. That is the standard across the board as far as I'm concerned. Now keep in mind, you've got to realize that I deal with most of the time some of the more challenging sellers and some of the more challenging properties because they've been on the marketplace, they haven't sold most of the time, so they are challenging. There's not to say that there aren't a lot of properties that are selling, okay? But I want to go through and give you some of the highlights here for the month. But it's one of the things I definitely want to point out to anybody that's listening is that you need to push back. There's absolutely no point in going into escrow just to fall out because, again, we spoke about this and I put an episode out about false economies. Usually those offers are too high because they are contingent to the cow flying over the moon or subject to the cow flying over the moon, which therefore allows them to put whatever price they want on that agreement. And then your seller's expectations are set. Then not only does it fracture the relationship with you and the seller, it then reputationally damages the property, also ruins the momentum of auction, ruins the momentum of traditional as well, guys, and the perception and the reputation of that property. So there's just downside for you accepting a deal just for the sake of it to stop having a tough conversation or pushing back. We need to push back. I just had an offer come in this morning on one of our properties up in Oregon. And Jennifer Mabin is a listing agent on that property. She's a long-time Harcourt's agent, but also a long-time, one of our best agents in the entire network, probably one of the better agents I've worked with over many, many years. But the reality is that great price. The terms were just awful. They wanted a radon inspection and all these other inspections. The seller just had all of this done and fixed everything into the punch list. Why? Because they just wanted to renegotiate later. And I just said, Jen, we're not taking it. She's like, I totally agree with that. They're just trying to play us. And it's just one of those things we've got to look out for. Okay, accepting something or presenting something and not going through the downfalls of it is important. So let's just quickly run through a couple of the results. I want to make mention of one that we had for Kathy Clark and Brenna Van Hoogenstein. They are the business owners of an office down Harcourt's Bluewater down in the Newport Peninsula. This property was in Laguna Niguel. It happened with a long-time flipping client of theirs. It was a property that the client had purchased not that long ago, and they're like, well, hey, look, I think we purchased it at the right price. They got a good opportunity. Let's see what we can do. I think they purchased it for $1.2 million. We ended up having, I think it was 9 registered bidders on the day of auction itself. We sold it for $1.6 million. Just to give you an understanding is that this is a situation where the property hadn't been previously listed on the marketplace. And a great example of that is that all the offers that they could get going and talking to investors off market. Now, all investors that were purchasing this property, it's in like completely gutted, like it needs to be completely done. It's a flip. There's no question it's a flip. Great area being Laguna Niguel. But they approached a whole bunch of investors off market that the sellers asked them to do. They didn't want to put it on the market. They just wanted to see if they get an offer. The best they could do was 1.4. The competition got those same people to 1.6 on the day of auction. So again, is auction the best method when the market is moving incredibly fast? Absolutely. And it's one of those things that a lot of agents use an excuse, oh, we don't need auction. Well, at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And I know that you're underselling your real estate if you're not using it in a market where there is high demand, or a price point or a property where you know there's high demand. Going for that quick sale definitely wouldn't have benefited these people. We got them an additional $200,000 more. Again, an incredible deal for them, a great result. Proof that, all of those investors, they still see benefit in the marketplace. There's no question about it. Obviously the right area, right price point, right timing, everything along those lines. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of traditional real estate. We had another auction in Laguna Niguel. Judy Parsons, it was a first auction. Seller's expectation was way too high, and we couldn't really get anybody. They wanted $2 million for it. We could only find people around that $1.6 million mark. That's one of the biggest discrepancies of the month. But we were able to find that out really quickly and efficiently move on. But then this property here, boatload of interest. Just again, it was a stone's throw away from this property. Just different property, different timing, different circumstances, different market, different opportunity. It all comes down to that. And again, auction exposing that, letting the market breathe, and letting it actually speak for itself. A couple of other results that we've had as well through the month as well. We had a property at 37 Magnolia Street in San Francisco. Yvonne is the listing agent on that. Now, I'm going to get Yvonne's last name wrong, so I'm sorry if she's listening. Yvonne Taraka. Okay, I believe that's how it's pronounced. But either way, this was an interesting circumstance. This property is in a great neighborhood, Pacific Heights in San Francisco. Now, we all know San Francisco in certain areas has had its challenges. There's no question about it. We had an auction this month also in the Millennial Towers, which is down in the business district. Now, we were able to get a fair few people interested in it. Just again, there was too big a discrepancy between what the seller wanted and what we were able to get people, interested in. So they were able to make decisions based on where the market was speaking at that period of time. That was even a tough marketplace, even prior to COVID and prior to anything. But realistically, this property here, Magnolia Street in San Francisco, very unique property for the area. One, because it was a new build. The property was only a few years old. It was a newer property within the area. It had been built completely from scratch, but it was sort of a Spanish style. And if anybody knows San Francisco, it just isn't the style up there. Beautiful property. However, it was one of those ones where immediately we got a little bit of interest, but not as much as you would with a traditional style property in a really nice neighborhood like that. Like people were sort of caught off guard with color schemes, style, all that stuff. But when we got them to the property, a lot of people still came, and the reason that they were coming was because of the price point. The bidding to start from on that property was $3 million. Now, we sold it for $3.75 million prior to auction. Somebody put an offer in at 3.2. They went to 3.5 and then 3.750 prior to auction because they didn't want to go all the way through to auction day. So we were able to leverage that date. You guys know the story if you've listened for a while, is that that was a tremendous result in that marketplace, because that we knew traditionally, brand new to market, hadn't been listed traditionally previously. They just knew immediately that it was just going to be hard to get people through the door, because the seller was going to wanted to price the property well over $4 million. Didn't want that for it, but just wanted to make sure they left room for negotiation. It was just going to ruin the momentum. So Yvonne was really on top of making sure she used the auction process appropriately in that. So just to speak to that, when a seller wants to leave room for negotiation or wants to inflate their price too much, and they'll accept less, maybe auction's the way to go in the first degree. Now, Another property that we had, this property is Oak Park Drive in Riverside. Grant Dolp, the listing agent, bidding to start from at $1,157,000 is what we sold that property for. That was post-auction, okay? So this was a situation where we didn't have a lot of interest leading into auction day even at the bidding to start from at $1 million. Grant was able to educate his client on the marketplace and get them to accurately price the property at $1,150,000 after auction, and it sold for $1,157,000. So this is a situation where, again, it was about pricing effectively. He was able to do it in a shorter period of time. Post-auction came around, we priced it effectively, and away we go. That is a lot of the conversations that I'm having with our auction process, certainly in the month of August. And I can take you through that a little bit further in an episode where I'm going to go through and talk about all the ones that we have taken off the auction platform and priced effectively and then have sold. I think that's a really important part of this in the process, because it is something that speaks to it. A lot of people are like, oh, we didn't sell it at auction. No. But we processed that so that your sellers understand value. I've got one coming to mind at the moment with Anna Chapman up in our Eugene office up there. She 100% gets a process, tremendous agent. Sellers wanted $750,000 on their property originally. Now, we put a bidding to start from on it of $425,000, and we could only get offers all around the sort of 450 mark, but we were at least getting people to the door and we were getting offers. So we said to the sellers, they need to be somewhere between 450 to 500 if they wanted to sell their property, put a traditional list price on it. And again, that's the angle that we're going. I'm having that conversation this afternoon about that. But the angle is about educating, and that happened in such a shorter span of time. Then imagine starting at 750, going down from here, extended days on marketplace, reputational damage of the property, relationship fractures with the seller themselves and you as the agent. Just a nightmare traditionally. But auction was able to fast track their expectations down and start listening to the market. So that one sold after auction. Well done to Grant, long-time auction performer. He had a great, he's done a great couple of auctions with us. Craig Pellig is the agent for the next one. It's out of Florida, Delray Beach. This property here, $1 million, selling for $1,150,000 post-auction. Same exact situation. Had been on the marketplace, priced much, much higher than that previously. You know, Craig, being the good agent that he is, had told the seller several times that he's too high a price. He wanted to go through process elimination. The seller didn't really have any motivation. So then we finally mentioned the auction process. We took him through the auction process. We got offers that were, lower, sort of around the price that we're at the moment, that he rejected. But then obviously going back traditional, pricing it effectively, and another one turned up. It was just a process of elimination. And sometimes they won't say yes to the first offer, but sellers will say yes to the next one after that if it's around the similar price, because ultimately that consistency of feedback is there. So well done to Craig as well. Now, talking about a couple of others that are coming up as well, there was one specifically, Drew Tashira, who is a business owner of Harcourt's Place. He's in Newport Beach also. This property here is in Coto de Caza. So for anybody that knows Orange County, it's sort of at the back end, southern Orange County, sort of the back end of it, out near Rancho Margarita and again, it's a really good neighborhood, but it's a neighborhood that sort of is inland. It's seen to be inland. So when you start getting upwards of $2 million ranges, it starts to get pretty difficult. However, it's not as difficult in Coto de Caza itself, the new part, the new development. This is old Coto. Okay. And that poses a little bit more of a challenge because the homes are older. It's an older looking area. It's probably not as desirable as a new area. That's my personal opinion. It might be for some. But this property here with Drew, I'm going to say via Burrow in Coto de Caza, bidding to start from on the property is $1,500,000. We sold the property for $1,250,000. Now, that is a neighborhood record, just so you know. And a record in the current standing of the current marketplace, absolutely phenomenal. Okay, absolutely phenomenal. Really played to the trigger. Our next best offers on that property was around 1.9. So really played to the leading point of where auction date was coming in. It sold prior to auction day. A really, really good result for Drew. Now, next one is a property, and it's out of Los Angeles. This property here is with Steve Dempster. This one was a challenge, just based on price point. $360,000 was the price point, and we sold it for $475,000. Property, definitely selling prior to auction. It was just one of those tricky situations. When you get down to properties at that sort of price point, people are a little bit skittish when it comes to inspections, conditions of property, and everything. And being able to provide all of the information up front we were able to really solidify that deal prior to auction day. And it was one that was really clean that we had to absolutely jump on, because the other buyers that were involved, while they were around the same price point, they weren't willing to remove their contingencies. So therefore, we had to go with the cleanliness of that deal first, and it would have made sense to bring it all the way through to auction in those terms. Now, a couple of others that we had also. Property at Pacific Street in Oceanside, Maddox and Stephanie Shripitch. This property here, bidding to start from $4 million, okay, selling for 5.7. Now, this is one of the highest price per square foot in all of Oceanside on the ocean front itself. Now, just so that you know, the reason I'm bringing it up now, originally we auctioned it in January. Now, we didn't sell it at the auction itself. We put the property on the marketplace. We took the property down off the marketplace for a week period post the auction date, okay? The highest bid that we got on auction day was $5.4 million, which, just so that you know, absolutely remarkable. The seller is in a unique position. Not a unique position, is in a fortunate position that they literally could have locked the property up until the end of time and never had to sell it. It was one of many in the portfolio that they had. But just wanted astronomical value. I don't know how else to put it more politely. They're just absolute astronauts when it comes to price, like just out there. And price of 5.7 came in because we took it down after auction, because one of the things that we do is we take the property down and we allow buyers to come to us that sort of were playing games. And around that price point, it's funny, a lot of people try to be smarter than maybe they really are and try to strategically negotiate and all of this stuff. I'm not going to be involved in auction. So we just removed it from auction. And we let it go dark for about a week, and these people approached us and we're like, oh, well, guys, we're probably going to keep it off the marketplace. And sort of we're a little bit nonchalant about it, which obviously one of the real tactics that we have there is that taking it down off the market and waiting for them to approach us puts us in more of a strength position when it comes to negotiating. Anyway, long story short is that we end up getting $5.7 million for the property, which is once that closed at the very end of August. Long story short is that it's just a remarkable result. Again, had to be creative, hence the reason it's only closing now. We had to go through some creative solutions in order to do it. This guy was having an acquisition of company, all this different stuff. And again, that's one of the things that sometimes you have to do when your sellers have got very high expectations. Sometimes you've got to go with the more creative buyers because they will pay more in order to compensate that. Okay, so just keep that in mind, folks. But another property that I will say that was a great result also. Another one that was a really good result is a property. Oh, actually, I'm not going to mention that one because I'm going to save that for September because it hasn't closed yet. I thought it had. But either way, guys, I'll go through some of our September results as we close them out in September. Closing notes on August. Tough month, no question about it. Volume of listings is really big for us at the moment. Success rate for the month of August, I would go as far as for a company where we usually are over 90% from a clearance rate perspective. If we were just to isolate the month of August, I would go as far as to say listings versus results is about 45%. Now, that being said, out of the 55% that are remaining out of those, 50% of those would be priced effectively, and I'm very comfortable that they will sell based on the price that they're at. The other 50% people have just taken off the marketplace. I think it's one of the things that I'm definitely interested in the marketplace at the moment. People's equity in their home and their ability not to compromise is something that we all need to be conscious of in the real estate community, because at the end of the day, you need to understand about investment of your time. We've had a couple of situations recently where things have fallen out of escrow, and the volume of effort that the agents have gone to, the seller's just simply going, no, I'm not going to put it back on the marketplace. Like right there, I believe that's an incredible gut punch, and you've got to absolutely have the foresight to see the length of the process or length of the relationship or whatever it may be. But being petty about it, it's a shit because of the volume of work that you have to do. But again, interesting marketplace. Our numbers for the month of August, funnily enough, actually from a closing numbers perspective, were higher than last August. Didn't feel like it because we had to work so hard for each individual closing that we had. But a couple of ones that I just wanted to point out for different price points, different areas, different marketplaces. The right price points still seem to be good. The Pacific Northwest still seems to be moving pretty well. Other marketplaces still seem to be really struggling. I think the talk of the election, talk of interest rates dropping has really, again, still got people not jumping up and down. But the other thing that I will say as well is agents seem distracted. And obviously because of all the new changes that are happening within the real estate world, agents definitely do seem distracted. And I think our distraction is probably 20% of the volume, or 20% of the lack of results would be the distractions within the real estate marketplace as it stands at the moment. and just not knowing what's around the corner. So my only bit of advice is to stay focused, stay conscious around what it is you're there to do. List and sell real estate, not get involved in the minutiae. I'm not saying don't be aware of it, but I was the type of person to just keep going and ask questions later when I really needed to understand them. Now, I'm not saying that's the best approach. All I am saying is that I think that level of distraction is very evident. And, at the moment, 390 auctions I have live at the moment. I'm dealing with a little north of about 300 agents all across the country. I think we're only in, the number, I should have known this before. I think we're in 9 states at the moment. Our Oklahoma properties are gone and sold. So we're not in Oklahoma at the moment. And, we do have Washington. So yeah, I think it's 10. It's actually 10. So long story short, guys, is that getting to see a vast array of different parts of the country gives us a good synopsis. But it does still point out that there is a little bit of distraction. So stay focused on what we're there to do. List and sell real estate. And, there's always resources there for you if you need to ask questions as you go. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight to what August looked like for us. I'm happy to have it behind me. I've got to be honest. I'm looking forward to September and getting into that and getting into the latter parts of the year. But thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in, and look forward to chatting with you soon. If you need any help with any of your style listings or any help having a conversation about auction, just let us know. Reach out. Thanks so much. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.